So,
We'll call this special meeting to the order here at 4:35, City Hall, Council Chambers. We will dispense with item 2. Item 3, any?
No, sir.
Okay. Go to item 4, workshop on the results of the City of Navasota water, wastewater, and natural gas rate study conducted by New Gen Strategies and Solutions.
Mayor and Council, as we went through the budget process this year, we talked about the need for a utility rate study. The city's not really done a utility rate study in quite some years. I think 2013 maybe might have been the last year. I couldn't even go back far enough to find it. And so we hired New Gen Strategies. Matthew Garrett's here tonight to go through the presentation here. We went through a process of reaching out to other vendors that provide these same services. Determined that his company is the best for us and best value. In addition to doing the utility rate study, they also are going to be providing us with a working model after we're done, and so that if we want to do what-if statements as we go through the budget process next year and the year after that, we can plug our CIP in there, plug in the revenues, expenditures, those type things, to adjust our rates accordingly and based on any growth that we might see or any CIP projects that come in to play. Again, the presentation you have before you is going to be looking at multi-years like we did for the financials. We want to make sure we look at multiple years for the utility rates. And so I provided you in front of you, you've got a history of our utility rates. And this is, when I talk about utility rates, this is your water base rate and volumetric rate, your sewer base rate and volumetric rate, and natural gas, which is the base rate and volumetric rate. So in the system, we actually build on hundreds. Everything that you're going to see tonight and within this presentation here, as well as on this piece of paper, is in relation to thousandths gallons. That's kind of the norm. And then when you look at natural gas, it's MCFs. And so before you, at 2016-17, I went as far back as I could. Those rates you have, 2017-18 fiscal year, there was no increases that year. 18-19, you increased your base rates around 3%. And your volumetric rates around 2%, on your water, and on sewer and gas is around 3%. 2019-20 fiscal year increased your base rates around 5%, as well as your volumetric rates. For 2021, there was no increases that year. In 21-22, we had rates increases around nearly 6%, so anywhere from 5.6 to 5.8% increases. This year, we have not had any increases. What you're looking at there from 2020 to 22-23 all the way over to 26-27 is what we're looking at, what we call multiple years. And as we work through the PowerPoint here, when Matthew gets up to go over this, on one of the slides, that's where those numbers, where we talk about option 1 and option 2, that's where those numbers come from. And at the very end, I tallied those up. So if you add up what the monthly increase would be for fiscal year 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, depending on which option you choose, I highlighted the green, which is showing that option 1 is the less for a customer based on the examples that's provided within the presentation. Want to kind of, I know that Ms. Clements sent some questions here, and I know that I want to make sure that I address some of those because there are some questions that you might have and some of the public might have as well. And so we understand there's been increases in your CIP portion related to the street and drainage, the CIP related to capital improvement fees, and Republic Services. We're not talking about those. What we're talking about is your water, sewer, and gas base rate and volumetric rate. On the gas side, we're not talking about the cost portion where we enter into an agreement with Symmetry or Atmos or whoever that is. This is operational cost. And so these factors are what we're going to talk about tonight. And kind of understand why we're needing to do some of the increases. As you know, we're in the process of doing some major CIP projects related to the water tower, to the water plant itself, and as well as trying to do a water well. There are some pressure issues around the high school area, and just a little bit on the west side of Highway 6. We understand those. That's not the primary reason for us doing the water tower. The primary reason for us doing the water tower is because TCEQ says you've got to have, for every connection, water connection we have, you've got X amount of storage in the water tower that we have to have. And with Pecan Lakes coming on, and with Hidden Hills coming on, proposals for all the other connections there, if we do not get something built very quickly, we're going to be in violation of TCEQ. And so that's the primary reason. And we're running really close with Phase 4. I think Phase 4 is about the max. After that, we've got to add storage for water.
And if we don't increase, then we cannot allow folks to build.
Correct, and we actually come in sanctions too. So there's penalties that TCEQ will. Carrie probably knows some of those.
Was it Magnolia or Montgomery, one of the others?
So they've done they've done moratoriums.
They've had a moratorium
for
because they
correct.
ran into this situation.
So those are things we don't want to get into. Also, if you'll think about the gas, so the natural gas, where we're needing the new Hollister regulator station, the Pecan Lakes loop. So Jennifer's team was very great with this last cold spell, keeping Pecan Lakes up and going. I can't guarantee that's going to keep happening unless we get the regulator station and get that loop system in. Definitely with added more, if we add on all those houses, we can't do it. So adding these CIP projects is a must. Those are things we have to do. Any pressures that we get is just an added benefit from the water side. So hopefully there will be some great pressure over there. I know that we listened to the consultant that came and did our water study and said by adding new capacity and all of that will allow some pressure over by the high school. So we're hoping for that. Some of the other things.
Another question?
Yes, sir.
And maybe Jennifer knows. So when we had this last cold spell, I noticed that my stove, the flame turned from blue to orange. So it wasn't coming out as strong, so the pressure wasn't as strong as it normally is. That's what we're talking about, right? So we're seeing this as a problem today, that with increased building will just
Correct.
amplify the issue.
Correct. So we're trying to get ahead of that curve.
Yep.
And
Sounds like we're in it right now. I mean, we're like
correct.
there.
Yeah. We've caught on really well.
Yeah.
Some of the other concerns and things I've spoken about through the budget process is when we talk about cash and debt. So we don't want to. We're a local government. We don't want to gather all this cash. Your enterprise, your proprietary, your water, sewer, and gas funds need to operate like a business. They need to keep some reserves, and our requirement is 90 days. Plus, we need to keep at least enough to be able to pay for our debt payments. Other than that, it's nice to have a little bit above and beyond, but you don't want that fund balance to keep growing and growing. So that's why this year we're able to pull down on some of those and do some other projects that we need to. However, I am of the opinion, I think the best financial advice I could give the council and for the city is when we have CIP projects, we need to issue debt. And what that does is, by paying, it makes your future users of the system pay their portion, instead of making the users now pay all of the portion. And so that's just something that I think it's fiscal responsible to do. And so that's why when you're looking at some of these numbers, we're going to be factoring in, when Matthew gets up here to do the presentation, talk about some of them, because we had to look at a big picture. And our big picture is, okay, we've already got the water tower and everything coming in now, but at some point, if the growth is happening like it is, there's going to be another water tower needed. And there's going to be another wastewater treatment plant. So with those things happening, we have to figure out where those projections go in. And within the 5-year plan, what we did is we didn't go the last year and say we need to do it that year. We brought it 1 year forward so that you can see what the effects of the debt payments would be. And so if growth doesn't happen, we won't be doing those debt payments and debt issuances and capital projects so soon. But it's something you need to start thinking about. When growth comes, when it does, it's going to come, but when it does come, you're going to need another water tower, 1 or 2 more water wells, and you're going to have a wastewater treatment plant. Another one. Not closing this one down. It's another one on the other side of town, and somewhere probably over, I think we looked, it's going to be somewhere on the southeast side of the city. So at this time, I'm not going to take all of Matthew's thunder. He's got a presentation here, so I'm going to let him go through it real quick and ask questions if you have any.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Matthew Garrett with NewGen Strategies and Solutions. I do appreciate leaving some thunder, Jason. I think you covered most everything. That's quite all right. Having a former finance person at the helm, I can tell you your city manager dug in deep, and we appreciated his insights along this path, certainly with some of the other changes the city experienced. So we'll go into it. As already kind of mentioned, you are managing a number of fund types. One of those is an enterprise fund. As an enterprise or proprietary fund, we do say that you act and put your hat down as a government official and turn into a board of directors. Not for profit necessarily, but to manage prudently the assets you have for a good that you sell, frankly. That said, you have, as Jason had in your handout, a year-over-year comparison of rate increases. So kudos to you and those that came before you for taking rate action. I've been in multiple council chambers this year alone where we've had no rate increase for 4 to 5 years. So someone was kind of asleep, or for whatever reason they didn't need it. But again, at least you have that pattern of funding this business that you operate. As mentioned previously, the capital improvement plan is driving some of your need. That's sort of outlined here by system. You'll see the stacked bars with water, wastewater, and natural gas funding. As alluded to, that fiscal year 2026 bar is higher. We did pull back some of those 5-year numbers into year 4 so that we could show that rate impact in year 5. What I don't want to do is come to you and show you a 5-year plan that knows we have a debt payment in year 6, but I didn't put it in here, right? So I don't want to lead you to that cliff, which is why we backed that up a bit. Again, you're not approving a funding plan to spend $12 million in fiscal 26. This is a financial forecast to help you see the rate impact should you need it. So we never recommend that you patently approve a 5-year rate plan, but in this coming year, you should at least act on the current rates to get you through at least a year, if not 2, depending on your druthers, of what's expected. Any questions on the CIP? We've already mentioned plants, wells, and some other items, but you may have already looked at the 5-year CIP ad nauseum during budget. Very good. Well, I'll move on. You'll see the way that we funded that. Of course, we have to factor in how you plan to spend those dollars over time, not just what you're going to spend it on. We have highlighted a $2 million grant opportunity that's expected. So that's a nice win for the community. So again, good job as leadership finding ways to make this more affordable for your community. But I've also listed a number of cash payments. So your capital structure generally refers to your debt versus cash use, right? On your big spends, and we do have a number of cash payments, but you will see that the total projected new debt is 1.6 and 11 million, and so we've done our level best to use cash where we had it, but at some point the level of capital need here can't go with cash, right? The principle around rate setting that Jason referred to is something we called inter-equity, right? Intergenerational equity, rather. So between generations, if this asset's going to be for 30 years, then those that come in the next 10 can also pay for it through their rates. So that principle we've seen a number of places. Again, this is a forecast. This isn't a final plan of how you are approving to spend. These are my assumptions that went into a 5-year forecast of cost. Any questions on the big numbers here? Excellent. Additionally, we know that you are growing. We know that you have some needs in operations, right? And so we have programmed in a number of staff. That's 4 new technicians over the 5-year period. That's 1 a year, not 4 technicians every year in water. So that's 4 total water technicians over the 5-year period. 2 total in wastewater and 2 in natural gas, where we had sort of staggered those in starting in 24 and 25. So current rates. I didn't put any red on here, but I like to call this the burning platform. It's the impetus for change. We can't stay here, right? If we don't do something about rates and we need to fund these capital projects, you'll see that our expenses are exceeding our revenues in the top left box. You'll see that our reserve target is not achieved. You'll see that our debt service coverage, our pledge to bondholders, won't be met if we don't have additional rates to cover the needed bond payments. So, with that, we have wastewater, sort of in the same boat. We did look at each of these in isolation. So as if each had to pay its own way, that's not an imperative of you, right? But you do have these as separate departments and funds. And so we can look at the cost and split on a normative basis, who should pay for what. So you'll see the same trend. We can't maintain the current rates as they are in wastewater. So too in natural gas. We're a little bit better off for a short while, right, with some surplus funds. But we can't maintain the rates with the level of funding I just showed you. So what are the proposed rates based on? So I have key performance indicators, right? I'm not just shooting blindly at a number north of good. We have a days cash on hand goal of 90 days, right? I would suggest that that's probably your floor, right? Any more than you want to operate your checking account at 0, you don't try to hit 0, right? You probably want a buffer. So 90 is what I'd say your floor is. You may want to maintain a target a little higher than 90 in this enterprise to weather the storm in what could be a drought that causes a revenue shortfall, or a flood, frankly, that causes a revenue shortfall when you're selling water. Additionally, we wanted to hit debt service coverage. That's just a one-time factor, meaning we can pay for our operations with our current revenues and our debt needs for the coming year, and that each utility would pay its own way, right? So trying to avoid the subsidies that could come between different utilities. So those are objectives. So here are your current rates. I live in McKinney, Texas. I don't look at my bill. If it's within a tolerable range, I don't know how they charge me. As a council, I'm not sure if you know your rates, because you don't do what I do for a living, and it may not be very important to you, but here they are. Your minimum charges are $15.92. That is for all meter types and sizes. Your volumetric charge is per 1,000 gallons, and it's uniform, right? It's uniform for the residential class, and it's uniform for the commercial class. Wastewater, you'll see, is $26.43 minimum, and then you have 3,000 gallons included, right, with that base charge on your wastewater, and natural gas charges are in front of you. So when I look back at your rate design, I think of a few norms that I hold to be good practices. Norms would be you charge bigger meters more based on the instantaneous demand they place on your system. As Jason alluded to, there are some metrics you have to hit relative to pressurized, either elevated or ground storage requirements per connection. Well, those are based on meter equivalent connections. So a 5/8" meter does not have the same mathematical requirement of a 2" meter. If anything, it's maybe more like an 8 times factor, if not more, of that smaller meter. With that said, we recommend that you would employ some meter equivalency so that you would start to have larger meters pay more per month for their availability of that higher service level. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, we talked about a flat rate or a uniform rate per volume. So there's a really long-winded, I need a big breath for this. The Texas Water Conservation Management Task Force Best Practices Management Guide from 2006, I believe, said that you should employ tiered volumetric rates. Not because you're worried about conserving water, but you're worried about prudent use of water. Yes, you should water your lawn. We like green better than brown, but should it be 40,000 gallons? If you don't change or send a price signal, I have no reason to make that next unit of water any more valuable as a resident than I do for the first 1,000, right? So what we'll show you here in a minute is we're recommending that you put in place a tiered rate structure. That would allow marginal water usage at next increments to be charged a little bit more as people get from certain levels of usage. Does that make sense? Additionally, you'll see later when I do your regional bill comparison, you're not alone, but you're still pretty unique relative to your comparators. Most others on our list have some inclining block rates in place. Okay. So how do we set that? Well, we do a frequency distribution. We got into your data, we got to the customer record, we did a proof of revenue, looked at a number of things, and what you see on the vertical axis is the average monthly connections that are within bins, if you will, of this little histogram at the bottom. So you've got 88% of users get to at least 2,000 gallons, right? So 51% get to beyond the 5,000, and then only 8% get to beyond 15,000 gallons. And I've got a lot of data here, so I want to pause, make sure everyone can digest that, and help you understand and clarify how we chose some of those thresholds. Any questions about what we're showing? This is for residential water use.
And also, so this is what he's proposed, that the proposal is, when he talked about the 4 tiers, would be 0 to 2, 2001 to 5, 5001 to 15, and then everything over 15, based on what you're seeing here.
I'm not sure what the axes on this are.
Yes, sir. So those are counts of monthly connections. So if we looked at the average usage by connection, you have, I believe, 2,700 or so residential accounts, right? So the average use for 2,745 of those is between 0 to 1 or includes 0 to 1. So it's cumulative, right? So they pass through. So you see number of customers are dropping off. What you have in the tail is an observation that only 8% of your customer averages are over 15,000. And that about half get in that 6,000 or what would be 5,000 and over to 15,000.
Now, so the vertical, which says average monthly connections.
Yes, sir.
That's the number of customers.
Yes, sir. That are falling in that range of the
Okay.
bin below. Yes, sir. The bin being the volumetric consumption of water in a month.
The problem is the numbers are so close, it was hard telling which one.
No, and I apologize. We tried to show
Okay.
those increments because occasionally council will get excited and do their own, and they'll, well, give me 0 to 3 and give me this to that. So we did want to show you the uniform for the first some odd, what did we get to, 25, I believe, and then we start, no, we've got up to 30 on each 1,000 gallon of units. So I could have tightened those up and given you some bigger font. My apologies.
Just out of curiosity, are there any commonalities within the ranges?
Sure, relative to the users or?
Users, yeah, or use, either one.
So we didn't actually do what would be a cross, if you will, sample, where we would say, of these users, try to tie back to an average home value or some other statistics around that. We do know there is a general gallons per capita per day usage. You probably have a target of 150, 160. It could be lower. It certainly is lower in some of the areas that are short on water. But we can talk about what the average person uses. And we can talk about that, but I can't tell you any other demographics about these user types. The data we were presented was kind of an account number and consumption per month. So, well, of course, we can tell you it spikes in the watering season.
Right.
Yes, sir. With that, other questions on it? I'm going to show you how that's employed. Again, the color banding, so great point, Jason, thank you, sir, for showing that 0 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 15, and 15 and above are the bins or buckets, the tiered brackets, really, that we are suggesting you use. So getting into, you want me to go ahead and go one more, Jason?
Because I think that was the one right. No, that's right. You're right. Sorry.
Okay.
You're right.
So now that we've talked about a couple rate strategies, one, we could just raise all rates, right? And we can get there. I can tell you a percent that gets you to your number, and we don't have to change anything. But you may be in the same pickle. You may not encourage the right customer behaviors. You may not be evaluating the cost on your system for the larger meters if you don't make some changes. So we're only proposing 2 scenarios. Both of those include employing a meter equivalency factor. So as an example, I believe it's a 3/4 inch to a 2 inch. That is an 8 times factor. What we're recommending is that you look at only a 50% of the meter equivalency. So if, based on the math, I should charge you $200 for that 2-inch meter, I'm only suggesting maybe a 175, right, or some number less than at a percentage. Does that make sense? Okay. Secondly, the timing is really in question. In scenario 1, we have no rate changes to anyone until October, sort of in conjunction with budgeting process, and we would employ those 4-tier structure to the residential and put the meter equivalency on all of the customer classes. Scenario 2 puts one change into place here in March, coming up in the near term, which is to put a 50% meter equivalency factor on commercial customers. Most of your large meters are commercial, and I can't speak for every commercial owner, but oftentimes in communities I serve, commercial has a little less resistance to rate change, right? So they have a larger meter already. They've been paying the same rate as the small meters. We can show that commercial has an additional cost to us. And so that's how we would justify changing the rate for that one customer in the near term. Then again, in October, we'd come back and set the rest of the rates, the residential and the tiered structure, and we put those into place. So that's the only difference, is the timing, where commercial would be in March in scenario 2, and everybody would be in October in scenario 1. So here are those numbers side by side. So the residential bill impact of scenarios 1 and 2, you can see that to get to the same end, we may have no variance in year 1, right? We did not have a change, so I'll point to water at the top left here. So we're not changing in scenario 1 the rates to residents until October, right? So that's a $0 change here. If we were to go ahead and increase, we'd have a $4 change in fiscal 23. In 24, we would see the full impact of the rate change here on scenario 1. And so ultimately you can see that across each of these different utilities, and we're really just staving off a necessary increase, which will produce a little bit larger step, right? If you don't put money aside today and you need all of it tomorrow, it's going to be a bigger jump. So it would be a little bit bigger increase on scenario 1 if we did nothing until October. Does that make sense? Okay. So on a combined basis, we have this $13 differential between the two, and you see that go up over time. And I think Jason already plotted on your large sheet, if you want to see it sort of in that format as well, on a percentage over time. So you can see where you stand relative to your current rate, which again would be scenario 1 in 23. So if you did not change in fiscal 23, you wouldn't have any movement. They're at 53.15. This is for a user that has 2,000 gallons of water and wastewater. Also, that small footnote with the asterisk and the little squiggly, which the real name evades me. But those are 2 symbols used around the comparator cities to indicate the asterisk where those communities do have a tiered rate structure, as we've suggested, and the other indicates that they have meter equivalency. So you see sort of in the minority in Navasota not employing some of those best practices on your water rate designs. So this is more of a typical user. in Navasota, around 6,000 gallons of water and wastewater. Certainly we have a number less, and you all saw the chart, we have a number more. But if we're going to talk about your average, this is the representative average user, where we have the same sort of scenario, right, where the current and scenario 1 are equal at 8312, and you can see the impacts of scenario 2 and scenario 1 as proposed. I should also add there may be a number of communities, as much as we did to review these and see who has rates, there are a number of communities also looking at their rates going forward into fiscal 24. And so, of course, we don't have what they're planning to do coming October. So that's important to note that the relative position may change. It could change substantially, and it could be minor as well. I feel like I should pause longer on this. Any other questions about the rate designs proposed? Why would we change rates in that way? The net effect? All right, well, hearing none, I'll assume I should go on to natural gas. So again, here we've chosen the average winter use. Some of your customers may not use any natural gas until it comes winter time. Others may have sporadic use, but certainly in the winter, we find that number to be higher. Here it's around 6,000 MCF in winter, and that number is actually used pretty widely for comparisons on investor-owned utilities. So it made a convenient comparison on the next slide. But you'll see we don't have a lot of local comparators, right? Natural gas is not a utility that every city provides. So you'll see that we have a pretty broad range geographically of those that have it. But that's your relative standing, and the rate increase you'll see is not nominal, but it doesn't really move you in relative position in the comparator group of other cities that have this. Again, as referred to before, this does not include the gas cost adjustment. So the commodity that is used is billed independent of our rates. These are rates to cover our cost at the city, and the market rate effectively, or whatever you've contracted for, is the commodity rate that will pass through your gas cost adjustment factor. All right. Additionally, we've done some comparisons to investor-owned utilities from what we could from publicly available records. And so you see here, you stack up comparable. You're not quite the lowest person on the chart, but you're doing pretty well relative to even privately owned natural gas operators. These aren't all in your area, again, but these are investor-owned utilities we could readily get our hands on rate, tariffs, or schedules for. So that actually gets me to questions and discussion. Happy to go back, cycle through what the tiered rates mean. I don't think we have an exhibit about what the rates really look like at this point, but since we're workshopping it, I think we're more looking for feedback on rate design options, correct, Jason?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so mainly to get back to whether we're going to look at doing option 1 versus option 2. So what I had down, when I first started looking at it, of course, option 2 looks really great, especially when you look at sewer. So sewer, if we do option 2, that's a 17.5% increase in March, and then another 17.5% increase in October. If we go with option 1, no increase in March, but nearly a 38% increase in October. However, when you look at the long-term effect of it, and that's what I did, was look at the big picture. You add up what this year, the actual 5 years would cost over a period would, for sewer, $246.86 on option 1 versus $253.47. And the reason is because of that, though it's 37.7, you've got 17.5 twice within a 6-month period, or, right at a 6-month period. Not much fluctuation there. It gets back to council, what is something that you're gonna have to answer to your constituents? What's it gonna be, when you get out there? An increase in March and then followed 6 months later to do another increase, or just wait until October. Give the residents time, hey, the increases are coming, that way, city can advertise and get that out there, get them prepared for it, and just do, an increase in October.
On the sewer, that, on that last column, where it has the, what is it?
The green?
Yeah, the green.
Yes, sir.
246.86.
Yes, sir.
What is that number?
So that number is year 23 plus year 24 plus year 25 plus year 26 plus year 27 equals that amount. And then for that's for that option 1. Option 2 is 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 for option 2.
Okay, I'm lost. The 34, if we go back to 22-23, what's the 3480?
The 3480 is your monthly charge for residential sewer at 6,000 gallons.
So that green at the end of that is an add of 1 month in each month?
That's 1 month, that's correct.
I'm not sure what that number gives me. I mean, I see what the mathematics is, but I'm not sure what the usefulness of that number is.
I believe just the green is highlighted to be the slightly lower when you add the cumulative effect, and I think the sum of those individual months per year, of course, that's not a yearly total, but if these were normal users, then that would be their effective monthly delta under the 2 scenarios, right?
Yeah, so
The sum of those.
Yeah, it'd be the sum of it.
But as a consumer, I'm not interested in what January of 23 is versus January of 24 versus January 20.
Correct.
I'm interested more in what it's going to be for the month of, or for the year rather than the month. And I'm going this way instead of this way.
Oh, absolutely. I would suggest that these long-term numbers, these 5-year forecasts that Jason put together, those that we put together, are really for you because you have an appetite for long-term vision of what you're going to need to do in the future with rates. When you get down to the public communication, I trust it's going to be rates are this, rates are going to be this, here's when it affects you, here's what you can do to minimize your usage, sort of messaging. But no, correct. This is really for you, kind of guiding scenario 1 or scenario 2 as an option. One of the major reasons we don't want to immediately pull the trigger on a tiered structure is because we're about to get into the watering season, and we want some time to educate people on this. And so that's another good reason to have a little bit of a stave-off period to start the public.
Well, when would we start the tiered system?
In October.
In October.
Yes, sir. So sort of after the peak season.
In the second.
Well, so based on scenario 1, we would do October, and then, both of them in October. You're correct.
Yeah.
He's correct.
One thing I should add, the proposed rate differential between the tiered structure at the moment is 10%, which is modest. Like, that is negligible, right? $2.50, add another 25 cents. Is that going to change customer behavior at that next tier? No. That same long-winded best management practice guide I mentioned earlier suggests no less than 25% between your steps to have a conservation price signal. That said, we want to turn this boat a little more slowly, and we thought we would ease you into, you have a tier differential, even if it's small, and as the city determines that it would like to increase conservation measures for what you may consider discretionary, unnecessary maybe, use at the, 25,000 and up on a residential property, you can pull those levers later. We're trying to just give you the structure in this first year, and we think that's a lever you may want to pull in the future to sort of increase that gap to send stronger price signals. So while we have the price differential, we're not expecting a lot of rate shock because we don't anticipate that first 10% per step to amount to a whole lot of money, I guess. I don't want to minimize someone else's budget, but it's certainly the smallest step I've put on a proposal this year.
There's not much difference between scenario 1 and 2 financially. It is the perception.
Right.
That's the only thing that I think that I'm asking from y'all. What can you live with perception-wise?
Yeah.
You don't have to come to an agreement tonight, but please let me know,
Right.
especially if you're looking at wanting to do the scenario 2. In order for that to be enacted in March, we've got to do, the next meeting would be the first reading, first meeting in February, the second reading, and that gives us just enough time to get the rates entered into the system. Again, the usage would be March. They wouldn't be billed till April. So we'd have some time to get it in there. But that would be the process. If you're wanting to do it all in October, then we could come in February and do the ordinance in February and with the effective date, October 1st. Between now and then, if you can just give me any questions you might have, because I've got 2 other council members that I need to walk this through as well, and get some of their feedback as well. And then, as Matthew said, this isn't, between now and then, we can get the actual, what the structure is for all of the rate structure. Because this is just mainly dealing with residential and commercial. You've got inside city limits, outside city limits. We got
Airport, you've got a number of different classes right now.
different classes and everything, but they'll all follow the same scenario percentage.
We've been very careful over the last 10 years anyway, that we didn't heap everything together. That if we were increasing one, that we maybe held off on another one so that it wouldn't hit the consumer all at the same time. Our economic situation being what it is now and much different, it's going to hurt. But it's like everything else, we're going to have to be prepared for it. And I like the idea of waiting, postponing, and not for the sake of postponing, but postponing it as much as possible to allow first of all the vain hope that something's going to happen with inflation and the situation's going to be better. But realistically looking at it and just saying that to give people a little more time to plan for it.
Is there any consideration on new customers and tap fees and things like that?
So we always look at all of the different ways to include in.
Because it's the new ones that are basically causing this. So that's my question. Is there are we looking at that as any part of the?
Mayor, I am looking into increasing the tap fees since the meter costs have increased and materials have increased. So we are looking into some tap fees to go up. for residential and commercial.
But that wouldn't affect anything on this. I mean,
Well, yeah, it's a little bit piece, but the other piece, so you, please understand, once we get to year 26 and 27, those might drastically go down. If we don't need to do a wastewater treatment plant, a $5 million, and by then, it's probably gonna cost, we put $5 million in there just to put a number, placeholder. But if growth doesn't happen, say it's another 5 years out, those rates can go back down. But at some point, you're gonna need a wastewater treatment plant. And so you could see rates go like this.
and how will it be monitored?
So that's the great thing about the model that Matthews Firm's providing to us, the additional funds that were allocated for that. They're providing us a workshop on how to input the data into it. This isn't the only rate study that we need to have. You don't need to have a rate study every 10 years. You need to have one at least every 5 years, come back and retool it. The great thing about the tool that he's providing, we might be able to extend some of that and input the numbers as we get growth, as CIP comes in, adjust those up, down, whatever we need to. And it's a what if I'm not mistaken.
It does. It have some scenarios. We have a number of clients, like Conroe down the road has used us now for 9 years, and we go back in every year and do a little work, right? As opposed to them driving the model. Some of our clients have the model, as is proposed to do here. And so this is an ongoing, we recommend you no less than you look at your property taxes and sales taxes to set general fund. We recommend you look at your earnings from your utilities every year. So your staff, through this tool and their continued efforts, if they invest the time into it, can effectively do their own rate study annually. They can also have the what-if scenarios, as Jason alluded to. What if I move this project out 2 years? Oh, well, I can tinker with rates a little bit here and there. So that's the goal of this. It is just Excel. It's not proprietary. It's just a couple decades of doing it that put it together, and then we can pass it off to your staff to maintain.
This also does not allow for the possibility of getting grants in the meantime, does it?
Well, it does, in as much as we've already put in $2 million into this, so the tool will allow, you have the $2 million grant, I believe,
Yeah.
in '23. And so that's something we can factor in, that there are known costs, but there is this offset, right, another pocket to dip into.
Right.
So staff could factor in an additional grant. They could factor in additional small increases to tap fees, right, as we call a revenue offset. Those are minor revenues relative to the grand scheme, but they can certainly update those, and they could put a new number in their forecast for it if needed. So yeah, it has a little bit of flexibility built into it. I believe we even have 3 other departments built into it, so should you change your general ledger structure, that it's something that could be wrangled without having to call Nugent again. And then lastly, we do have a custom ribbon that has a help button, and it sends us the file, and whoever's driving at the time can say, "Help, I broke it," and we do provide a little assistance just to keep things moving forward.
And as Matthew talked about, if you start seeing a buildup of cash, that's your telltale.
Mhm.
Okay, well, based on revenue projections for next year, you already have cash on hand. Maybe next year we don't do a rate increase. And so not so much decreasing, you just go without increasing for 1 year, which technically is a decrease in your rates.
Yeah. And we would not be proposing that all of these changes that are listed here would be enacted now.
No, sir, no, sir.
They
We're
have
only
to be
looking.
voted on each year, each time he goes to change.
Correct,
it.
because it's a living document, so it's gonna change
Right.
throughout. This is just Kenny giving you a big picture again, so that you can do planning.
Okay. Go through the agony every year.
Any other questions for Matthew? Thank you, Matthew, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor, that's all I got on this item.
other more questions or anything, discussion? All right, well, we'll adjourn. This regular meeting of the Navasota City Council is called to order on Monday, the 9th of January in council chambers. Let the record show all council members are present with the exception of Ms. Peterson. Welcome and thank you for being here this evening. We ask that you put your cell phones in the silent mode. And visitors, please sign in. If you wish to speak under visitors' remarks, please fill out the form found in back. State your name and address at the podium, as we must document all meeting business and remarks limited to 3 minutes. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Mac Vaughn, then followed by the pledges.
Let us pray. Oh, gracious God, as we begin a new year, we just thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon each of us and all our citizens of this county and this city. God, we just thank you and look forward to us being able to encourage one another and have positive words of affirmation for everyone. May your Spirit guide and direct us in all we say, all that we do. Oh God, we just ask a special blessing upon the first responders and law enforcement, oh God, that you might be with them as well and keep them safe. God, be with us as we enthusiastically discuss the business of the city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Oops. Wasn't me, I promise. I need some Charlotte, I'm sleepy.
Any remarks, visitors?
No, sir.
Okay. Item 4, staff report.
Mayor, we have introductions of some new employee. I'm going to have Peggy come up and introduce our new employee.
Good evening. Peggy Johnson, Human Resource Director. Matt Miller, council members. I would like to introduce our new city employee for the year of 2023, Maribel Frank, if you would please stand. She joined the city of Navasota, came to work for the city of Navasota on January the 3rd of this year. She was hired on as the Chief Financial Officer in our finance department. Maribel received her Bachelor's of Business Administration in Accounting from Sam Houston State University and completed the Accounting Advanced Technical Certificate in Professional Accounting to be CPA eligible. She has worked directly and indirectly in government finances for over 6 years as an auditor and then for 20 months of accounting manager at the city of Jersey Village. Would you help me to give Ms. Maribel Frank a warm welcome to the city of Navasota?
Thank you, Peggy. Mayor, next, not an introduction of a new employee, but I want to also bring up, and she's not going to toot her horn, so I'm going to toot it for her. Jennifer Reyna is now the Public Works Director, so please welcome Jennifer as the Public Works Director. She's going to get up and give us our CIP update.
All right.
Jennifer Reyna, Public Works Director. Today I'm giving you our CIP update. I'd like to start with our street and utilities. The CIP, this is the big project that we've been planning for a little while now. Blau and staff will be meeting on the 12th. We're going to go over some site reviews and then take a look at some things that we've been kind of have some setbacks on. We have a few streets that still need to be surveyed. And then we're going to really dive deep on site plan on the whole project. So that's going to be taking place this week on the 12th with staff in Blau Engineering. Once all that is completed, then we should be out for bid for this project March or April. April the latest. So that's my goal, is to have that up and going in the spring for the bids. Now I'm moving on to the AWAS project. That's an airport project. This is the weather observation system for the airport. I'm still waiting on a transformer to be installed for the power for the AWAS. I talked to Entergy today. There were some miscommunications from their office to them, and so it kind of put us back a little bit. So that pushes me probably from a completion date from January to maybe a February completion date. That month will be done. After that, I'm going to update you on the fire hydrant replacement project. We are meeting Thursday with Blau for this project as well. We are looking to go for bid on the fire hydrant replacement project February or March. March the latest, but late February for sure. Hopefully we can get that out. So that's a pretty good project that's going to be starting here pretty soon. Last but not least, our sidewalk project that we have going on West Washington from 8th Street to 10th Street. So as of today, they have completed everything except for the ADA ramp and about 30 feet of curb on the first block. So they have started the street that goes between the first block and on 9th Street. So they're starting to do the demo and pour on that part of it. And then they started demolition on the second block for about 100 feet on that. So they're starting the second block. So we've made contact with those customers on that second block. I don't have a solid completion date because what they gave me is not really, I don't think it's reality. So I'm working on a completion date. I want it done before birthday bash. That's my goal. So we're doing everything we can to keep them going on a daily basis. So that's what I have. Any questions on any projects?
Mayor, Council, so on that last one, we're working with Carrie on it. We're not going to really do the legal stuff until after the project's finished, and then let Carrie tidy it up and with a bow and have the discussions for any overages, because that project was slated to be done this week, and as well as you probably know. In addition, in the weekly memo related to the milling of Washington, so Lupe was able to reach out and got confirmation from the Bryan TxDOT district. They're willing to go curb to curb, so they're actually going to go where the parking spaces are. It's going to be our responsibility to stripe the parking lot, so we'll make sure staff gets out there, takes some photos, and get some measurements and everything of where the stripes need to start and all that. Don't have a time frame on that yet, because they've not even finished doing the milling yet because of requirements for them to get so close to the railroad. They haven't met that requirement yet, so once they get that done, they'll be starting back on it, and I assume that's when they'll come in and do the milling for it. But as soon as we know something, we'll be sure to reach out to the merchants and let everybody know, because we want to be able to do that again when it's not going to affect our downtown merchants.
Also, I left out one more project on the Public Works new warehouse at the wastewater plant. It's wrapping up. We just did a walkthrough punch list, and once that's finished, then what we're going to have is Jose's, staff, they'll build a driveway from the driveway that's there up to the warehouse, wide enough for me to have, big loads come in and out. But that we can do all that in-house. And then after that's done, I'm thinking we could start moving into the new warehouse probably, February. We'll start probably February.
Or maybe have like an open house or something once it's
Once it's up and
later,
going,
later down the
yeah,
road, maybe, just so people can kind of come out and
Yeah,
check it
maybe
out.
we can have a chamber mixer there or something. Yeah.
Cool.
something.
If they want to help us start moving the
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
I can teach them how to drive some backhoes.
Come on.
And
Yeah.
some heavy equipment if they want. But that's all I have for you. Any questions?
Just a little bit of, beyond our purview on this, I think, but, what's the status on the situation with the bridge and all the publicity that was closing the lane and close of North LaSalle and,
So that's a TechStop project, over there that's at the river, is that correct? Is that
Right,
what you're asking?
right.
So that is a TechStop project. The city, has no way of knowing their schedule or when they're gonna start or finish.
So Chief Mize and Lupe both have been in contact with our district here, actually, locally, as well as with Brian. It was kind of different. Brian didn't even know that was occurring. I guess originally they were supposed to put some traffic control up. TechStop came out there, looked at it and said, no, this isn't what you're supposed to have. So they postponed it, opened it back up. The projection was supposed to be January 2nd for it to open back up, and to date, I don't think they've still done it. So my assumption is they're still waiting for that traffic control, whatever they're supposed to be having, to properly be roped off and whatever that their deficiency was originally with TechStop. I'll be sure to have Lupe reach out to them this week, and then within your Friday memo, try to give you an update about that.
Jennifer, I do have a quick question just about the AWAS.
Sure.
You said that we're waiting on a transformer. Is that really just waiting on a transformer, or is it still waiting for them to order it?
No, there's just a little miscommunication from the offices that send out like a work order to Entergy. They put in that it was all underground. Well, we've done all the underground work already, and we've set a pole with the can and everything. But they need to put a transformer on a pole so we can get power and it with drop down services. So there was just something that happened between.
I'm just curious, it just seems like we keep having problems with energy not doing whatever project that they have agreed to, and so I'm just curious if, I know we don't have any control over them, but just putting some
I
pressure
just
to.
think something happened in their office that they told me that it's like a third party office that kind of just really don't fully understand everything that they need to do out in the field. I don't know. And then so
So when they
crew
come and
actually showed up today, but it was the wrong type of crew. They were there to do underground, and it was an above ground project. And so
Do you still have to get the electrician to come in and then connect that to the equipment once they put the transformer in, or are they gonna do all
I
of
think
that?
so, yeah. Once we get to that point, yes, but that's not a big deal. I need that done by Entergy, and then we'll get the companies out here to set it and everything else. But I did talk to the engineer today, and he's gonna come out first thing in the morning and look at it and see what's going on. And then kind of give the correct type of work order to the crews. And then we'll go from there. So it's okay. We're just a little bit behind, not too bad. So I'm really I'm trying to get that stuff done because it's.
Yeah, I have no doubt, we could be missing that one person that needs that information to fly in that brings in, all the money. I don't know, wishful thinking probably.
I'm thinking February, the latest. I emailed the company to keep them in the loop, to let them know that it got delayed a little bit longer. But it shouldn't be much. I think the engineer's gonna kind of get things going since it was messed up from the get-go. It's okay. We'll work it out.
Hey, and Jason, we
Just
just got
hold people accountable.
Oh, I do.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Chief Mize just got off the phone with TxDOT with our local office, and the northbound flyover to Highway 6 is now closed. So they were setting out cones, and just as we speak, they were closing it off. The original scope did change. Originally, they told Bobby and I that it was gonna be northbound and southbound bridges for the Navasota River Bridge that were gonna have maintenance, but now it's only the northbound, but it's gonna take 60 days total for 30 days per travel lane. So it'll be roughly a month that the northbound flyover will be closed and all traffic will be diverted to 3090, so. Yeah, and close down one lane on Highway 6, so.
That's just now.
Oh, boy. Anything else? Good?
Good, I got some more on the staff reports when you,
Okay.
if you want to.
Any reports from council, boards, and commissions? We got our new calendar, so we have our new assignments for the new year. Kicked off today is what's called It's Time Texas Community Challenge. Just to let the public know, it's something that community can get involved in along in our school district to gain points for healthy activities that you do in the next 3 months or through March the 5th. You can download the app on ittcommunitychallenge.com. We also put out a press release for that today, so you can see that in the paper and as well on our Facebook page to get more information. Just FYI, the Spanish GED registration at the Navasota Center is tomorrow at 6. And the Martin Luther King Day Parade is Saturday the 14th at 11 o'clock, and it'll run from Brosig to Washington to LaSalle. So, and I think the lineup is at like 10 o'clock, so that's on Brosig Street for anyone that wants to be in the parade. Otherwise, it will end at, or there's a program at Friendship Baptist Church following the parade.
All right, Mayor, we've got State of the City on Wednesday, so the mayor's going to be giving the State of the City. Staff's been working on a great presentation for that, so I've got everybody RSVP'd for that as well as staff, so looking forward to that. Also want to be sure to give a big shout out to our Public Works and Police Department during the winter storm. I know council will let you know about it, but also the public probably doesn't understand how much time and effort, that goes into planning an event like that, though we didn't get any precipitation, luckily. There was a lot of wind and there was a lot of very cold temperatures. Temperatures went down in the negatives. That had a significant effect on our residents. So on our side, we didn't really have a lot, other than we did have some issues at the wastewater treatment plant that we're going to have to work through that over the next couple of months. However, residents did suffer some of the brunt of some busted pipes. Public Works, we had about 4 people that were on duty, and that was Christmas weekend. And overtime was about 80 hours, anywhere from 50 to 80 hours for those 4 employees each. So they didn't really get to have much of a Christmas weekend. So we're very thankful for all the time and effort they put in to make sure that not only was our water and wastewater system up, but also natural gas, which was another issue, especially out in Pecan Lakes and some other areas of the city not receiving enough pressure. PD, as they were out doing patrol, there wasn't too many people out on the streets, but there were some. They were able to run by and look for leaks and stuff coming out. I think, there's a funeral home up here on South LaSalle that water was just coming out of it wasn't yours, it was yeah, right down the street there, was coming out. And so, I noticed in our neighborhood, my neighbor across the street actually had to go shut his water off from his irrigation busted. Another neighbor down the street busted. So we had a lot of, issues with our residents. And so thankful for PD and Public Works for doing that. I know I gave kudos to Jennifer and her promotion, but also Jose. Jose is now the Assistant Public Works Director. He's unable to be here tonight, but if you see him, please tell him congratulations. Last thing, Mayor, go Frogs.
Do we have a frog problem?
I hope so.
Mr. Mayor, I heard on television.
You're not a bulldog, right?
I heard on television this morning that today is National Police Appreciation Day.
Law enforcement, yes, sir, sure is.
I think we need to give a big round of applause.
Item 5 is consideration and possible action on Resolution 723-23, designating the persons authorized to sign checks and authorizing designated persons to access bank accounts for certain purposes.
Mayor and member of council, I'm going to kind of just give you a brief overview because it'll cover this item and the next other 3 items. So this, as you know, Maribel Frank is our new Chief Financial Officer. Her new task is going to be overseeing our finances. Part of that is with our depository bank and any of our institutions that we invest funds with, which also include TexPool, Techstar, and Texas Class. As reviewing the signatories for those investment companies as well as our depository, there's some need to make changes. Our previous finance director was on that, so we need to remove those. At some of those locations, my name was not on there, but the previous city manager's name was still on it, so we need to remove that. And to provide some continuity of services, we've added to some of these services not only our chief financial officer, but Susie's on there, myself, and we've added Raina Chitera with our economic development director. So if there's an opportunity where one of us is out or on vacation or something, we can still do our services. And so the first item you have here is going to be directly related to a resolution approving for our depository bank, which is Citizen State Bank. Your next item is related to TexPool, which is our liquidity. It's a overnight investment pool. Same thing with Techstar and Texas Class, which is item 7 and 8. Both of those are overnight investment pools. So that way I don't have to get up again and repeat it. Those are what those items are for. Request is for council to approve those resolutions or authorizations.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 723-23.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fultz, second by Mr. Holt to
Mr.
approve.
Mayor,
Yes.
we have a problem in the second, on the resolution, the second whereas reads the City Council, City of Navasota, Texas further desires to adopt resolution authorizing certain, we need to insert the word persons after certain, between certain and to approve electronic funds transfers.
What is that again?
Need to add the word persons after
Word certain.
certain, authorizing certain persons to approve the electronic funds transfer.
I'll amend the motion.
Amended, okay?
Amend.
Motion by Mr. Fultz, second by Mr. Holt to approve Resolution 723-23 with corrections. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carried. 6 is Resolution 724-23 for authorized representatives for the city with tax pool, public funds investment pool.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 724-7-23.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holt, second by Mr. Jester to approve Resolution 724-23. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. And item 7, Resolution 725-23, authorized representatives for the City of Navasota accounts with Techstar Public Funds Investment Pool.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Techstar amending resolution 725-23.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gessner, second by Mr. Fultz to approve item number 7, resolution 725-23. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 8, consideration of possible action on designating the persons as authorized representatives for the City of Navasota accounts with the Texas Class Public Funds Investment Pool. It doesn't have a resolution number. Is it supposed to?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve designating Maribel Frank, Jason B. Weeks, Susie Holmeyer, and Raina Chichera as the authorized representatives for the City of Navasota accounts with Texas Class.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gessner, second by Mr. Fultz to approve designating Maribel Frank, Jason B. Weeks, Susie Holmeyer, and Raina Chichera as the authorized representatives of the City of Navasota accounts with Texas Class. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 9, consideration of possible action approving resolution 726-23 in support for the application of Volunteers of America to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for the 2022 competitive 9% housing tax credits to rehabilitate affordable rental housing in connection with Buckingham Gardens.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Lupe Diosdado, Development Services Director. So just to briefly summarize, Volunteers of America National Services has approached staff to receive a resolution of support, and that is a rehabilitation of current units. This is at Buckingham Gardens apartments on Buckingham Lane. As is summarized in the staff report, staff supports the remodel of existing units. I think I was speaking with Debbie previously before the meeting, and those units were built in the early '90s. So I think it's probably time for a refresh and an update. And with that, I'll give it to Deborah Welch. She's with Volunteers of America National Services, so it's an affiliate of Volunteers of America. And I think there's also representatives here from Buckingham Gardens Property Management too.
My name is Deborah Welchel. I work with Volunteers of America National Services, and we are the current owner of Buckingham Gardens, and I am here requesting a resolution of support for the 2023 9% application for Buckingham Gardens. Additionally, this resolution includes a notification to the City of Navasota that you have twice the state average per capita of tax credit units. Buckingham Gardens was built in 1992. It's 48 units, or it's actually 49 units, 48 one-bedroom units and one two-bedroom employee unit. Our unit rehab is anticipated to be about $57,000 a unit. The site work is about $12,000. We have a 10% contingency, and so when you add all of that together, we expect to do something in the neighborhood of $76,000 a unit in renovation. So the resolution is important because it's a scoring item. And then it also asks for a or not a contribution, but a reduction in fees of $250. Do you have any questions?
How long is was it VOA, Volunteers of America, have been running this program?
We have, Volunteers of America has been around since 1896.
No, I mean, how long have they been running this?
Oh,
Buckingham Gardens?
we built it.
They
It's a
built it?
202 crack
Okay.
that was built in 1992, and we owned it. Volunteers of America, Inc. owned it, and Volunteers of America Texas has been the management company.
Okay, and it's primarily for senior citizens?
It is for seniors 62 and older, and it has, there is what's called a housing assistance payment contract, which means that the residents pay 30% of whatever their income is, and HUD pays the balance.
It's been a very well-managed property.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What all
Thank you.
type of renovations are y'all gonna anticipate doing?
Well, I gave Lupe a scope, a preliminary scope. It's primarily first of all, the interiors. We're going to do all the appliances, the cabinets, the countertops, the floors. We have to do ADA units, and we have to make sure they meet current ADA requirements. So there'll be 5% of the units will be reconfigured probably. We'll be doing a lot of site work. We want to do some fencing around the exterior. We want to do some landscaping, tree work, some of the I'm trying to think the pathways, concrete pathways that are buckling because of erosion. We're going to have to redo those also.
Great.
What do you do with your residents when you're going through this process?
So what we are doing this in Burleson, as a matter of fact. Those are fourplexes. So what we're hoping to do is to get one building vacant. And then we will renovate that one building, and then we'll move the residents into that, and we'll start on the next building. And so it'll be an in-place renovation as best we can. And then the other opportunity we could do is bring the residents into the community building during the day, have them work on the unit at night, and have them go back into their unit if it's not significant work.
Gotcha.
Is there gonna be someone here locally that'll be dealing direct with the contractors and whatnot, so that?
Oh, yes, that would, well, locally, as in myself, NEI is the contractor we've selected. They are a larger company along the East Coast, and we're working with them in Florida, a Florida renovation we have right now. They've just opened an office here in Texas. They're down in Houston, South Houston. And so they will be looking for subs probably in the area. So I can certainly put them in touch with anybody that,
So there might be some.
yeah, there might be
possibly
some,
local, local contractors, that's
some
good.
opportunities.
Subs, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Does anybody else have any questions? And then, Lupe, if anybody does have any questions, or you guys have any questions about the tax credit program or the process, he has my email address and my cell phone number. So please feel free to call me or go through him, and certainly come back and explain the program and anything affiliated with it. Okay?
Thank you.
Oh, you do?
I'm Mac Vaughn. I've been on the Navasota Housing Authority. I'm vice chair now for probably 10 years. And I want to ask a question. My concerns for a lot of the residents is security, as Mike well knows. Are you putting up cameras or anything to enhance the security around Buckingham?
I do need to check the scope. That was a conversation that the architect and I had with the property management company. So I can't tell you that that's on the scope right now, but I can certainly take that under advisement and make sure it gets on the scope. I know that we would probably want, in our other properties, we are adding cameras, and we are adding a fob to get into the community building to make it safer. So, and then we are also putting up fencing. We want to put a security fence along that back, so that'll create some barrier, and then we'll put a wrought iron fence along the side. So we're trying to make it a more secure site.
Well, good, because it's really important. I know our residents have really spoke to us about how wonderful it makes them feel, that they feel safe and like that really is home, so.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm doing something in the city of Dallas, and they took down the fence. I'm doing 260 units of elderly, 1 and 2 bedroom. I'm building it in the middle of a neighborhood, and they told me I didn't need a fence. And I just about had a meltdown. But Dallas thinks they know what they're doing, so we're going to let them do their thing.
So does Austin.
Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 726-23 in support of the application for Volunteers of America to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for the 2022 competitive 9% housing tax credits to rehabilitate affordable rental housing in connection with Buckingham Gardens.
Mayor, Council, that should be 2023
Yes, it was a
instead of
2023.
Second.
The resolution is correct, though.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gessner, second by Mr. Fultz to approve Resolution 726-23, which is 2023 tax credits from TDHCA. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 10 is consideration of possible action on entering into a license agreement to GrimesCounty.net for water tower space on the City of Navasota water tower to provide wireless internet service.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. So first I want to thank Kerry and his legal team for helping us through this process on getting these license agreements drafted. And of course to both licensees, Navasota Wi-Fi and GrimesCounty.net. It's been a journey to get these things finalized. I know that they're eager to get up on the tower, so we appreciate their patience with us as we work through all this language and making sure that each agreement was really amended and tweaked to fit both of their needs. So this first one is for GrimesCounty.net. Like I said, they're both very similar agreements. There is a few differences, which are highlighted in your agenda cover sheet. But I know Matt with GrimesCounty.net is here if y'all have any questions on any of those specifics.
Mayor, Council, there's just one typo that I would like to point out to you that you would include in the motion, should you make a motion to approve it. It's on paragraph 7, the 5th line down. It says licensee shall buy. That should be BY, it should be BE. That's for both agreements, this one and the next one. So if we could include those corrections, that would be helpful.
I have a question about the Fire Watch and Weather Watch cameras that will be installed. Where will those be monitored?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Matt Silcox, founder and managing member at GrimesCounty.net. So the Firewatch cameras will look in all 4 directions, and they'll be available on the web, priority access to the fire department and first responders here. The public would not have access to recordings. They would just be able to see a live
They
view.
would be able to see it live, but they wouldn't have the recordings.
Yeah, when we add the recording capability, that would be available to Jason and others.
Primarily fire department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the license agreement with GrimesCounty.net for water tower space on the City of Navasota Water Tower to provide wireless internet services to the community with a change to section 7 to change the last sentence to licensee shall be.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fultz, second by Mr. Gessner to approve the license agreement with GrimesCounty.net, stated in the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item carries. Item 11, consideration of possible action on entering into a license agreement with Navasota Wi-Fi for the water tower space on the City of Navasota Water Tower to provide wireless internet services.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the license agreement with Navasota Wi-Fi for water tower space on the City of Navasota Water Tower to provide wireless internet services and to make the change in section 7 to change the last sentence, licensee shall be solely responsible.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fultz, second by Mr. Gessner to approve license agreement with Navasota Wi-Fi for water tower space, City of Navasota Water Tower, provide wireless internet services. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries.
Thank y'all.
Item 12 is the consent agenda, minutes for December, and municipal court report for December 2022.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda, which is the minutes and the municipal court report for the month of December 2022.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gessner, second by Mr. Fultz to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 13, City Council shall meet in executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, personnel matters concerning the annual evaluation of the city manager and possible amendment to the employment agreement for the city manager, and shall meet in executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, personnel matters concerning the evaluation of legal counsel for the city of Navasota and associated issues. And the time is 6:44. Item 14, we're going to reconvene into open session from the executive session. The time is 8:09 p.m. Item 15, consideration of possible action concerning annual evaluation of the city manager and possible amendments to the employment agreement for the city manager.
You gonna do it or you want me?
No.
It's all you, we
Okay.
ask you if you're ready. After evaluation, Mr. Mayor, I move that we amend the city manager's current contract from a base of $135 annually, keeping his car allowance and cell phone allowance the same, and raise his base to $145,000 annually.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holt, second by Mr. Fultz, to approve the increase to $145,000 base plus car and phone. And just to comment that the considerable amount of things were discussed about a lot of the challenges and a lot of the things that's been in the past 12 months, and we're very, very, very happy with the direction of the way things are going with the city, and working with staff and working with the community, and feel that Mr. Weeks is doing the city an excellent job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 16, consideration possible action concerning the approval of an updated engagement agreement with legal counsel for the city of Navasota and associated issues.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the engagement letter for legal services, which include our city attorney, general counseling, and municipal court prosecution with Beauvais and Cochran, PLLC.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holt, second by Mr. Fultz, and that would be this guy sitting right down here.
That's the man.
We're talking about. And
So hopefully he can get home tonight.
And his staff and his new staff that he's got.
Yes.
Correct, that's right.
And,
Luke and Joey.
appreciate the service that, you provide to our city. Very important to us, and, we really do appreciate the work you do for us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and really enjoy working with all of you and staff, and it's just a privilege. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
And when you need a vehicle, we're there for you.
That's exactly right.
Let's see, what is that base rate gonna be?
Do we need to take an adjustment of our own from that?
I told Jason,
Abba.
he's gonna send a bill to me, I'm sure of it.
No.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And with that, we're adjourned.
All right.